Okay, I'm excited to be here with you. This is a good class. The name of this class is How to Explore, the Fulcrum of a Needs-Based Conversation. In this class, we will teach you how to use questions strategically, ask tactical and calibrated questions, and integrate the FBI's behavior change stairway model. We're not using the CIA's model or the KGB's model. We're going to focus on the FBI's model. The image on the screen is the model. It's a stairway model: active listening, empathy, rapport, influence, behavior change. A good way to remember that is the mnemonic device allergic: active listening, empathy, rapport. There isn't a G on that staircase, but I put in there gain influence for behavioral change. The clear model. The clear model is the second half of the book, Conversations: How to Manage Your Business Relationships One Conversation at a Time. It starts with creating your conversations, learning and exploring, addressing, and then resolving. And today's class, of course, is focusing on exploring. I'll note there is that the process in the middle is iterative, in that you will learn and explore something, address it, and then find that you need to learn and explore more, and then address it. And it would be too complicated with too many arrows, but there are some times where you even have agreement for action, and then you figure out that there's a new conversation that needs to be had, and you go all the way back to create, explore, address, resolve. So what is to explore? I have an image of a guy in a safari hat with binoculars in the not quite camouflage, but tan color. The definition of the word explore: to inquire into or discuss a subject in detail, to probe for and uncover needs, wants, motivations, and circumstances. I believe that one of the failings of many people is that they don't go into detail. They don't go deep enough in the exploratory process. They take things at face value. They deal with the outer layer of the onion, the tip of the iceberg, the outside of the pomegranate. Like, they do not explore. And I think, no, not I think, I know that what makes me successful and what will make you successful is your ability to really peel back the layers of the onion, to get under the water where the iceberg is. Icebergs are so enormous that the part that's above the water is tiny compared to what's underneath. And that's true of human beings. The part that we see is tiny compared to what's underneath. And then, very clear in my model, is needs. It's a needs-based model. Successful exploring means two things. You've obtained a clear, complete, and mutual understanding. How you know it's mutual is you've checked for acceptance of your understanding. Now, I have an image on the screen here of a tree with a reflection in water, and the water is almost the same color as the sky. And why do I have that? Well, other than I have a soft spot in my heart for pictures, but why is this important? Because to the degree that you can get in someone's world by exploring, your understanding is so mutual and it's so clear, so complete, that it's almost identical to their understanding. That level of depth is uncommon, and it's what makes my conversations extraordinary. And it's what will make your conversations extraordinary too. Exploring is the fulcrum. It's the point on which a lever rests and which it pivots on. It's a thing that plays a central or essential role in activity, event, or situation. You guys have all know what a fulcrum is. There's a picture of it on the screen. The seesaw, of course, is the fulcrum that we all dealt with when we were kids. When you're creating, you're agreeing with the other person what the conversation is for. When you're learning and exploring, you're getting a clear, complete, and mutual understanding of their needs, wants, motivations, circumstances, but mostly it's the needs. You're addressing the needs. You're addressing both objectives and objections. And then you're gaining agreement for action about how the needs will be met or satisfied. It's all about clear. It's clear what the conversation is for. You're clear about the needs. You're clear about addressing them, and you're clear about the next actions. All right, now we're going to get into the tools. Categorically speaking, there's two types of questions: open-ended questions and closed-ended questions. And they are as different as opening and closing a window are. In chapter 8 of Conversations, we go over 14 different types of probes or calibrated questions. They are all designed to do different things. And in this course, I'm going to explain each one of them. But just starting here, there are 9 open-ended concepts: leads, assessors, motivators, clarifiers, continuers, journalists or W questions, greasers, hypotheticals, and subdecisions. Then there are 5 closed-end concepts: confirms, hooks, engagers, isolators, interjectors, and helping verbs, which are be, do, have. So let's dig into the 14. Number 1, leads. 2 examples. What do you think about blank, and how do you feel about blank? What do you think and how do you feel are 2 short, open-ended questions that control conversations. If you're looking for a way to control your conversations, then leads are where you should think first. Now, I have a picture on the screen here of a horse and a person. The person saying drink, and the horse has his hands on his hips saying, make me. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. If you want someone to think about benefits, then you say, what do you think of that the benefits are of blank? If you want to know how someone feels about the upcoming election, for example, you just ask them, how do you feel about the upcoming election? And the amazing thing is you're leading the conversation. Like maybe it was a conversation about, oh, my account's down, or I'm really upset. And you just ask, well, how do you feel about this? What you're going to do this summer? So wherever you want to lead the conversation, you've got, what do you think, or how do you feel? The next probe is assessor. Assessors are really great before you answer someone's question. They say, I'm really concerned about bonds, or I'm really concerned about, and you say, well, how familiar are you with how they work? What do you already know about bonds? How do you define risk? What's your understanding of how we do things? These are designed, they're what and how questions. They are the classic calibrated question that Chris Voss talks about in Never Split the Difference, a great book. How and what? So if you get a question about, let's say, inflation, and then you start to lecture somebody, first of all, you don't know why they're asking, that you don't know really how familiar are you, but now you've given this 10-minute lecture about how inflation works or doesn't work, and they might say, yeah, I already knew all that. So avoid going down paths that you don't want to go down by using an assessor. Motivators. How does blank affect you? How will blank impact you? What makes you say blank? What motivates you to blank? So how does inflation affect you? It might be good to know that in addition to assessing how familiar they are with it. How does it impact them? Because you're going to have a very different conversation when you understand how it's going to impact them versus if it's just for sport. They say something outlandish or outrageous. Instead of addressing the tip of the iceberg, you say, what makes you say that? And then understanding people's motivations. What motivates you? But you also need to clarify what people say. So we have clarifiers. What do you mean by blank? Or how did you come to believe blank? Or how come? How so? I'm a huge proponent of how come and how so. People make these statements and you say, how so? Or how come? Now, there's continuers. Continuers are the classic head nods, getting the people to continue. And then, really? What else? Oh, and what else is really very, very powerful, and we'll come back to that. But people make outrageous statements. Sometimes I just say, oh. When you're thinking about exploring and you're trying to get a true level of depth and you really want to understand all the circumstances, well, a journalist, the classic W's, who, what, when, where, why, and how. How does not start with W, but it does end with W. You want to keep people going. And that's where this type of question, greasers, what do you think about the weather we're having? Where are you from? What are your hobbies? What's the backstory behind your name or behind whatever? What's your favorite food, for example? Now, the point of a greaser is, especially with people who are giving you the Heisman Trophy and keeping you at arm's length, they don't want to let you in. But if you ask someone, what do you think of the weather we're having? This is a safe question. You can even ask people on an elevator. Another way to define a greaser, or a question that people just have to answer, is they would be a jerk if they didn't answer it. Then there's hypotheticals. If you were to do blank, what would you need in order to move forward? And so this is really good in a sales situation. If you had to tell someone about blank, what would you say? So if you had to tell someone about our company, what would you say? If you were to make a change with blank, what would it be? If I were to ask you to move forward, what would you think? If I were to ask you if you liked to go out to eat, what would you think? Or go on a date or something like that. This is a good bridge to the closed-ended probes, which a closed-ended question is a helping verb question, is a do you, are you, did you, have you, could you, should you. And so now as we go into the 5 closed-ended probes, now this one, do you like a red car or a blue car? That's like the classic on a car lot. If you're going to buy a hybrid, you say, do you, and it could be a hypothetical. If you're going to buy a hybrid car, would you want a red car or a blue car? If you're moving forward to open up a bank or a brokerage account, do you plan to fund your account with cash or check? That's a test. They might say, I wasn't even planning to open an account. What are you talking about? So that's like a trial close with a subdecision. Do you plan to make a decision before the end of the month? That reminds me of the car dealers, the mortgage brokers, like all the people who need to make commission, but they kind of want to know, do you plan to make a decision before the end of the month? And then when you're setting appointments, instead of saying my calendar is open all of next week, which I've seen really people do, and I kind of did, is, well, I don't have anything going on Thursday. Well, that's like saying, I've got this restaurant with an empty parking lot, and do you want to eat here? So would Thursday or Friday be better? Do you prefer mornings or afternoons? These are sub decisions on the way to a bigger decision to gain agreement for action. Confirms, very important, because you want to confirm that your understanding of their needs, but you also want to confirm that the agenda is right. You want to confirm everything. That's how you have clear communication. So things like, do you know what I mean? Do you hear what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you? Do I understand you correctly? Is that okay with you? Are we in agreement? Are you ready for us to move on? Then you start to lose people. If you can tell you're losing them, then there are questions that are engagers, or what I call hooks. Are you with me? Are you still with me? You get that, right? Do you see what I mean? Do you get where I'm going? Do you have an opinion? Are we heading the right direction? There's some overlaps with confirms, but the important thing here is to see the utility of closed-ended questions in a way that open-ended or not. And then there's isolators. Have I missed anything? Is there anything else we should consider before we determine what the next steps are? Is there anything else you're skeptical about? Is there anything else you want to talk about or need me to know? Then there's interjectors. May I ask you a question? Can I add some additional context? Do you mind if I interject? Can we take a step back for a moment? These allow you to interrupt. They allow you to have control when it's spiraling out of control, when the other person's talking ad nauseum, when you can just see they're upset. If you say to someone, time out, can we take a step back for a moment? Or I'll say, hey, do you mind if we take a brief recess? Again, it's a closed-ended question. Do you mind if we take a brief recess? Or hold on a second, can we rewind a bit? These are all different ways of asking questions in a very calibrated fashion. And then there's helping verbs. They are forms of the be, do, have. Asking people, do you see how this will work? Does this work for you? Have you ever done this before? Do you need some help here? Overlap here, right? With clarifiers, motivators. There's some overlap, but the important thing that I want to make, important point before I wrap up here. People lean on these questions. If you start to look and study and pay attention, are you from around here? Well, people will say, instead of saying, where are you from? Or did you go to college locally? Instead of saying, where did you go to college? They'll ask closed-ended questions instead of places that should be open-ended questions, and they'll lose control of the conversation. So it's not that you don't need helping verbs. It's not that you don't need to help people, but they don't usually achieve the objective that you want. In review, we've got 9 open-ended concepts: leads, assessors, motivators, clarifiers, continuers, journalists, greasers, hypotheticals, and subdecisions. And we've got 5 closed-ended concepts: confirms, hooks, engagers, isolators, interjectors, and helping verbs. And just to tie a bow around this, these 14 calibrated questions and probes, the open-ended ones do 3 things. They generate a dialogue, which makes it Socratic and helps you be in control. They direct the conversation and forward the action. And they elicit facts, feelings, motivations, needs, and wants. And so, in other words, if you're trying to use the fulcrum of explore and you don't use open-ended questions, you just try to use closed-ended questions, you can't generate dialogue, you can't direct or control or forward the action, and you can't get facts, feelings, motivations, needs, and wants. But it's not that you just use open-ended questions. You do use closed-ended questions, but the time to use them is in the following. When you need a quick answer, so an engager or hook, are you still with me? Do you understand? When you want to check for acceptance, so you put forth something you're addressing, but you're not saying, do you see what I mean? Or do you understand what I mean? You use them to determine if you've obtained agreement. Do we agree? The most basic. Do we see that the same way? And then, as I also intimated earlier, you can use a closed-ended question to make a statement or a point. That's an art form, but it's people do it all the time, maybe unintentionally. Again, these concepts are in Chapter 8 of the book Conversations: How to Manage Your Business Relationships One Conversation at a Time. But there's a bonus here that's not in the book. And the bonus is the behavior change stairway model. I want to overlay, or in this case, underlay the clear model. And that is, a lot of active listening is creating, it's kind of circling the conversation with the other person. Learning, and without learning, it's very hard to get empathy. So someone says, oh, my dog died. And you go, oh, I'm so sorry. Or someone says, I'm upset by what you did. And you say, oh, I'm so sorry. That doesn't work. That's not workable. You have to learn more. So when someone tells me my significant other died, I used to be really afraid, like, oh, they don't want to talk about it. And now I just say, how did they die? When did they die? And then it allows them to talk. Getting rapport requires exploring as well. And it's the first 3 steps: create, learn, and explore. There's no point to address or resolve if you haven't created, learned, and explored. There's just no point. All right, well, I've gone over a lot of stuff, and I always believe that some lessons have to be experienced in order to be learned. One of my role models, James Clear, said that, and that's why I created Conversation Lab. As part of Conversations Academy, we have a place where you can practice and experiment. I want to say this class has been sponsored by the book Conversations. It's available on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. You can go to conversations.biz for more information. And I want to thank you for being in this course, and I want to thank you for being a part of this very important conversation about conversations.